a voice of rescue with a word to rescue for your training and overcoming, entitled Trained, Not Troubled.
This is message number His time, our position. 1 Peter 5 and 7 of the We translation reads, "Turn all your troubles over to Him, because He cares for you and is watching over you." Now remember that trouble is suffering any form of adversity, affliction, calamity, difficulty, evil, hardship, persecution, test, trials, tribulation. So there is a level of complication to the situation because the trouble is accompanied by a challenging obstacle or problem that is too big for us alone to handle. So let's be clear. It is never an easy problem or situation. That is why it is called trouble. So this is why we turn it. We turn in that. We cast it like you are casting a fishing rod. We throw it as if you are throwing something away. We let it up, release our control, and then we let it go. When we release our control, we are surrendering our hands up to God, and then when we let it go, we're giving it to God. And together it is stopping and ceasing in our fighting and saying, "Lord, I let up, I let it go. I let it alone. I'm handing it where? I'm handing it over to God because it is too big for me to handle, but it's not too big for God to handle." And so this is why we let God have the care, the worry, the concern, the interest, the anxiety about the trouble. We make a decision that we're not going to be worried or concerned, because when we are worried and concerned, we are expressing or admitting that we first of all lack trust, and we don't know what the outcome is going to be. And so God telling us to turn the trouble over to Him because He cares lets us know that He did not create us to carry trouble. That is something that comes for a purpose, but not for the purpose of being carried. And so we know that one purpose is that we entrust it into His care, and we let it up and let it go into where? His hands. We let God carry it because God created us. He promised that He will never leave us. He promised that He would never leave us. He promised that He would never forsake us. God has not abandoned us. He does not abandon His creation. He is involved. He cares about us. He is concerned about everything that concerns us. He's interested in what interests us. He is attentive to watch over us, to upkeep us. He is the potter and we are his clay. He finishes what he starts. This is the position that we have in him. God knows that we weren't equipped to carry the trouble. And he knows that in order for us to hand it off to him, it requires that we be in close proximity with him. That requires that we have a position of not just to let up and let go. It requires that we have a position that we are in his care so that he can take care of those things that we care about. And so that we don't become bowed down, because he understands how he made us, and that is what trouble will do to us if we attempt to carry it. And so we cast the trouble into his hands. We let up and we let go. And we do that by not taking it to our heart. We guard our heart, but we give it to God so that we aren't moved, because if we become moved, we become unstable in our position again, we become bowed down. And so Psalms 62 verse 2, the TPT translation reads, there's no risk of failure with God. So why would I let worry paralyze me even when troubles multiply around me? And then 62 verse 8, the GNT translation reads, trust in God at all times, my people. Tell him all your troubles, for he is our refuge. And so that again establishes our position in God, is that we are not moved by trouble, but we take it to God. We don't take it to our heart, because we understand that it would cause us to be bowed down and then make us to be paralyzed where we can't move. So it prevents us from maintaining our stance so that we can stand up and resist the devil. It requires that we stand up. And so we tell God, we give it to God. We tell God about our troubles. We pour out our heart to him. We don't keep it in our heart. We give it to him because we believe, we trust, we understand, we know that he's faithful and he will help us. And so this is how our position deals with our location in God spiritually, that through Jesus, he is the gardener, and that Jesus is the true vine and we are the branches. This is our position. And so it conveys the view from where we see things. But then it produces our attitude that comes from Christ, which fixes our stance to regulate our posture. This is what discloses our disposition, the way we are positioned in our thinking, in our feeling, in the temperament of our mind, our understanding, and intellect to get across to the other side, to incorporate both sides of a matter to reach a meaningful and a balanced conclusion. And so this is the way we are positioned in our thinking, to know where we are positioned, where we are located in God. Another way in which we can look at it would be just from a mental perspective, in which we do not consider God's point of view, and we look, let's say specifically, at man's point of view, and we're reaching over to people, trusting in them to give us their opinion about what we should do, instead of seeking God for a meaningful conclusion. This is why it is important that we keep our position in Him, in His hand, and don't become bowed down. And so I will end with the Message translation of 1 Peter 5, 6 through 7, which reads, "So be content with who you are, and don't put on airs. God's strong hand is on you. He'll promote you at the right time. Live carefree before God. He is most careful with you." And so we again trust God, because we know that He is most careful with us. We understand that He is cautious with us, to not just to finish what He starts, but again, as the gardener, to fix anything in us, to purge anything in us, to bring His word to clean anything in us that does not belong, that is not fruitful or beneficial to where it is that He wants us to go and who He created us to be. And so our position is that we are content. Because we trust God, we are content, we are delighted, we are satisfied and pleased with our God, in His time, in His hands, to accomplish His purpose and His plan. He knows what needs to take place. He knows how much we can take.